This podcast is sponsored by Orchid Live. Orchid Live is a specialist occupational health software used by a number of SOM members to run every aspect of their occupational health operations. They hold healthcare records for over 1 million UK workers and work with both in-house OH teams and OH providers. You can find out more at orchidlive.com. Hello and welcome to the SOM Podcast. I'm Steve Randall, and this episode is one of a monthly series to help you as an occupational health professional with your CPD, as we invite specialists to share an overview of some of the topics you've told us you'd like to find out more about.
Hi, I'm Mandy and I am an occupational health specialist. I trained as a nurse and then worked my way through occupational health specialty to management level. And I was a senior manager at Guy's St Thomas's for a long time, managing a team there in the NHS. And then I became deputy head of the National School for Occupational Health for quite a number of years, looking at quality in education. And then also I supported the Faculty of Occupational Medicine, looking at quality with the C-Cross assessors. And then kind of alongside, I have been running an coaching practice, coaching with various different industries, different levels within an organisation as well. I tend to focus a lot on careers, transitions, people returning to work after absence, which for the majority includes parent returners as well.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the SOM Podcast. Really interested to hear more about coaching and how our listeners can use coaching not only for the people that they're working with, but also in their own careers. And maybe we could just touch on that first of all, because a lot of our listeners listen to these podcasts because they are looking to further their careers, they're looking to learn new skills, and maybe, they're relatively new or not even in OH yet. Maybe they're listening and they're in other clinical settings and wanting to progress their career through an OH practice. So how do you sort of work with people if they come to you and say, look, I'm a bit stuck, don't really know where my career is going at the moment. How can you help me, Mandy? What would be your first step?
My first step is usually, what we would do is an overview of how you got here. So what have you been doing? What have you enjoyed doing? What's kind of energized you and helped you along? And then maybe look at what you don't enjoy anymore and what's brought you to this place now that you're questioning it. Also, there's something about looking at what we want for ourselves, what's important to us, what gives us purpose and meaning, and how we foresee that happening over the next 5-10 years or whatever someone's rest of their career is. Some people get to a point in their career, I don't want to be ageist, but you get to your late 30s, 40s, and you've kind of gone into the career that you felt that you always wanted, and you've worked through the ranks, and you got to a good senior level or a manager level, and you get to a point where actually you're not sure if that's what you want anymore. And it's quite a normal process for us to go through, to be kind of go, actually, I've achieved what I thought I wanted to achieve, but actually now I want to go in a different direction. So we often look at that as well as to kind of what is it you'd like to achieve really for yourself and for others, if it's in terms of giving back for the next foreseeable future.
It's really interesting because I think people often assume that somebody who needs career coaching perhaps just isn't getting where they want to be in their career. But actually it can be the other side, can't it? It can be those high achievers who actually tick off all their goals in a time that is just crazy. And then they're left with all this time ahead of them and thinking, well, now what?
Yeah, absolutely. Often people feel that they come to coaching because they're stuck. And maybe some people who are in that position of what do I do next feel stuck, but some don't always feel stuck. There are lots of other opportunities and they're not sure what to go for. So they might come to coaching to kind of look at, can you help me explore these opportunities so that I can kind of make sure I make the right decision for myself, or help me choose.
Yeah, I guess it can also be to avoid problems, can't it? If you're hurtling down a career path and things are going pretty well, but you know that at some point you're going to need to maybe pivot slightly, or you've got an idea of where you want to go, speaking to a coach, getting that help before it becomes an issue, before it becomes a problem, can be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. When people ask me about what kind of coaching you do and what's it for, I often refer to as personal development. And so you can come to coaching with a desire to, actually, I'd like to improve my presentation skills. I'd like to improve how I present myself or influence in a meeting or with my peers. I coach a lot of first-time managers. They talk about a word that I really dislike, which is imposter syndrome. But people do feel like, actually, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why my boss thought I was good enough to do this job, because I'm not really sure what I can contribute. But actually, when you peel off the layers, there's a myriad of skills and strengths and actually ideas and a way of thinking that they have that they didn't think was something positive that they could contribute. So we often talk about developing their influencing skills, developing their leadership skills as well, and kind of what that means and what that looks like. So a lot of it's around personal development as well.
Yeah, and interestingly, Mandy, you've sort of opened up another avenue that somebody's career may progress. It might not be their desire or their plans and goals. It could be that somebody else has identified something in them, leadership skills perhaps, or potential to be a leader or to move in a particular direction. And that's kind of concerning them because, as you say, they may worry that they don't have what's needed. And people are saying, you could be a future leader. And perhaps getting those coaching sessions in early before that's a real imminent thing can be very helpful, because then they're ready for it when it comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And this touches on an element of coaching that I absolutely love, which is talking and exploring identity and who am I? And when somebody else has put you forward for a role that was a complete surprise, you weren't expecting it. I had someone last week who has returned from maternity leave, and straight away the manager wanted to put them into this project and asked them to lead it because they believe in their abilities and skills, but they feel a bit lost. And they kind of are struggling with kind of who am I within this workspace, because I went off on mat leave as one identity, if you like, as one person. And now I've come back after having a baby and I feel like a very different person. And so who am I now if I'm now going to be leading and I've got to lead this other project? And I refer to it as being, it's a bit like moving house. You've got your same bed that you had before, but you're in a different room and the environment feels different. So when we have go through a change, and it's the same for people who experienced a new diagnosis of a chronic illness, that actually before they went on a long-term absence, they were working in a particular role that the job probably was linked to their identity as well, and what they kind of hooked their identity around. And then they go through this whole experience within healthcare and in the NHS systems, and learning about the condition and the treatment and managing themselves day to day. And now they're coming back to work, and it's who am I now as I return into this space? So there is an element of where people can feel a little bit lost, and they can kind of go, I'm not really sure. I'm not the old person that I was before, but I'm not really sure what I am when I am back doing these jobs or in these new roles or working in these new ways. So coaching is a brilliant space to allow them to look at that in a bit deeper level and open it up and actually hear what you think about it. Hear your own perspectives and views about what you'd like for yourself, and also what you'd like for the future and how you'd like to be and conduct yourself.
And I suppose whether you're an OH professional working with clients and you're the coach, or whether you're being coached, honesty and openness is key to this, because if you're not just completely open and able to really say how you feel, or your client isn't able to open up and really say how they feel, it's difficult to get to what the real issues are and how to then solve them.
Yeah, it really is. It's the backbone of coaching to support an individual to feel safe in that space, and how you do that. I think occupational professionals are very good at creating that safe environment for an employee or patient or whatever to come and feel able to openly talk about what they're finding challenging about returning to work or about managing their health condition. Having coaching skills absolutely deepens that level of trust and helps somebody feel comfortable around you, so that they can say what they think. As a coach, when you do create that, it's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege to witness somebody in their truest sense and in their honest self that they probably don't show many other people.
And the interesting thing is, when somebody's an expert, like most of our listeners will be experts in their field, you have a lot of advice, you have a lot of information that you're able to give to people, but in coaching, I guess that one of the most important skills, perhaps the most important skill, is not what you say, it's in listening.
Yes. I often talk about the tensions between being an expert and being an enabler, and how you can you can be both in the same conversation. In the health coaching skills program that I run with the National School, we talk about taming your advice monster so that you learn the skills to hold back on delivering the advice or delivering, here's what, is the best treatment course for you. And just listening with curiosity. We often listen with an aim to prepare a response or to work out, oh yeah, I've heard this before. So we start making assumptions in our mind as to what we think the next element of the conversation is going to be and start preparing a treatment plan. But instead of actually holding back and being curious about, okay, so they've said this, I wonder where that came from. And I wonder what their beliefs might be, what their mindset is on the subject that they're talking about. It's listening, but listening when you're coaching, it's listening at a much deeper level. I think clinicians are very good at listening, but it's so interesting when we start talking about what interferences happen in a clinical context when we start thinking about it, that you then stop being curious and stop being curious about the individual. There's what we call a spectrum in coaching, and you can move from giving advice at one end to just listening fully at the far end. And it's a model by a chap called Miles Downey. And in between that, you could be summarizing what you hear back to them so that you can check in on your listening. You may be offering a recommendation, you may be offering some support, and you may then be giving very directive advice. So you can move across the spectrum, but the aim is to ensure that you have listened and the person has listened to an extent where you're curious and have unpicked what that person has been thinking. I think the key when we're going into any coaching session is to be there so that you help people think for themselves. We're not there to help people feel better. That's not my role. I'm not here to help you feel better, but I am there to help you think for yourselves. And my coaching is to support you to think more about what you think about it and what your ideas are, and so they can dig into their own resources and find their own choices and solutions and ideas as to how they can move forward.
And I guess having that ownership then gives them greater satisfaction than if somebody's just given them a fact sheet or a checklist of things to do. They because they can own it and they actually think, oh yeah, no, I was guided by the coach, but I did this. That's much more satisfying.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I was thinking about the expectations that we set. Yes, an employee who's been through, quite serious health diagnosis and has been through and met many different healthcare practitioners on their journey of treatment and recovery, and then they come into occupational health. So they expect every professional to tell them what to do. I want you to, you give me a diagnosis, you tell me the treatment plan, you tell me the recovery. These are the things I'm supposed to do when I'm at home. Okay, you give me all that and I will do it. And then when they come into an occupational setting, they're expecting the same. Often you get the comment of, my manager has referred me. So they're expecting the clinician to direct the rest of the conversation. And yet, if you then take a coaching approach that's unexpected, it doesn't really help you or them in that situation. We've had one of our past attendees on the program tell me that, oh Mandy, I tried some of your questions on with my patient last week, and I was met by silence, and they didn't really know how to respond. So there's various ways of tackling it. One is what we don't do very often in occupational health is to contract when the person arrives, and I say very plain and simple is kind of, what's the job we're both here to do today? So one element is, well, you've been referred by your manager, so we need to look at that, your fitness to work and whether there's any adjustment needed, etc. But also asking them, is there anything you want from the time here today? What is it you'd like to get out of this space? And so you both have kind of articulated your needs and your goals for the session, and it helps open up maybe a little bit of freedom to be able to speak about what's on their mind, what stuff might come up that has been a barrier to returning to work, or a barrier, an obstacle around their adjustments that they may or may not have. So it's really interesting. I think we've got to really be clear about setting expectations, and in coaching they call it contracting. And the contracting can happen throughout the session as well as at the beginning. So you can later on, if stuff comes up and you're met by silence by a question, you can return back to that conversation and say, I see that question has stumped you or is really making you think. Is it something that you want to reflect on further? what would you, and you might look at the clock and you might say, actually, we've got 10 minutes left of our session. How best would you like to use that? And so you're kind of recontracting with them again, just to, just so that you both get the most out of what time you have together.
I think that's really interesting because, as you say, if somebody's sent to the coach, sent to occupational health, that can feel like not a punishment as such, but it feels like something they have to do. And they might sit there, arms crossed, not really wanting to engage. But once they feel that it's a safe space, it's a collaborative space, and actually they're going to be listened to, they're going to be heard in a way that perhaps they haven't been up to that point because they may not have been able to, for whatever reason, share with management, for example. Once they feel that this is an opportunity for them to really talk about what they want to talk about, hopefully that opens them up.
Yeah. So I think employees who've been referred, not all, but there are some, feel like you're not on my side. You're on the side of the employer. So, whatever I say, it's not going to be in my benefit. And I think for the clinician, there is a tension, if you like, between their authority and credibility, but also their real want for that patient or employee to be better and to, we want them to thrive at work. The whole aim of the services we provide is to help them get back to work and enjoy it and do the things that they love doing. In coaching, we talk about sitting beside the person. You're an equal playing field. I'm here on the journey with you and I'm walking the journey with you. Whereas when you come in as an expert, there's a level of, well, I have a certain level of authority, and also I've got to be credible in terms of the advice and the expertise that I offer here. And it becomes a real tension as to where do I sit at this point? Where do I actually position myself to sit with them? And how does that impact on how they see me as someone who's a credible doctor, who's got expertise and the proper advice for them? So there's something around how you conduct that conversation. Again, what's the job we're both here to do today? So you talk about the goals and needs for the session for both people, and then they start to loosen a bit when they see that actually you're interested in them as well. And we should be interested in them. We should be more interested in who they are, who's this individual in front of me, what are they going through? Often the defensiveness or agitation comes out of a fear of something. And do we really actually try and understand that a bit more and support them to face that fear and understand what that fear means for them at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating topic, Mandy, and we, as always, with these mini CPD episodes that we do, only really scratch the surface, and there's a lot more, obviously, that people can find out about and learning that can be done. Where's a good place for people to start finding out more about improving their coaching skills and about what you do?
I have a website and it is called kutacoach.com, so KUTACOACH.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as Mandy Murphy, and I can be contacted either place. I am continuing to we run 2 a year, the health coaching skills with the National School for Occupational Health, and there's certainly interest elsewhere. So if somebody wanted to run it for a group of healthcare professionals, we can do that. So someone just needs to get in touch and we can talk about what that might look like for them so that it feels appropriate for their audience.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for being part of the SOM podcast.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
This podcast is sponsored by Orchid Live. Orchid Live is a specialist occupational health software used by a number of SOM members to run every aspect of their occupational health operations. They hold healthcare records for over 1 million UK workers and work with both in-house OH teams and OH providers. You can find out more at orchidlive.com.